Hello and welcome. This is NTA Tuesday Live and I'm Cyril Stober. The federal government announced that it would distribute 42,000 metric tons of grains, which was approved by President Bola Tinubu to poor Nigerians at no cost. It also announced that the Department of State Services and the National Emergency Management Agency had been engaged in the distribution process to ensure that the commodities get to the targeted citizens nationwide. Now, how are states coordinating this assignment, especially in getting the grains down to the populace, as well as other efforts to reduce the sufferings of the vulnerable? That's the topic of discussion tonight on NTA Tuesday Live. But before then, let's get to see this report put together by agriculture correspondent Musa Baba Aliyu.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture and Food Security is putting finishing touches to final arrangements with the National Emergency Management Agency for commencement of distribution of assorted foodstuffs to vulnerable Nigerians. President Bola Tinubu had earlier directed the ministry to release 42 out of the 51,000 metric tons of food in government silos.
Currently, we have 53,000 metric tons of grain reserve in our reserves, in our silos across the country. We have requested to release 42,000 metric tons, and for a very good reason. We need the 11,000 metric tons for any eventuality.
Investigation by NTA reveals that bagging and mapping of adequate security measures were responsible for the delay, considering the cases of attack on government and private warehouses in the country. In the meantime, state governors are also rolling out support programs for poor vulnerable Nigerians in their states. This is in a bid to cushion the effects of the high cost of foodstuff being experienced across the country. For instance, in Yobe State, thousands of vulnerable Nigerians received free foodstuff from the state government. Other states such as Sokoto, Kebbi, Borno, Osun, Ondo, and Ogun State have also rolled out different intervention programs.
But the state government also, in its own effort, has acquired over 120 trucks of food to complement what the federal government is doing so that it can reach more people.
So when you say food, what are you looking at?
All assorted grains, you know, from rice to millet to guinea corn to sorghum to soya to beans, everything.
We have tried our best to provide support for our farmers. The first thing is to change the orientation of farming by letting them know that, look, agri itself, farming is a business and science. That is not the normal hoe and cutlasses. We are changing the orientation. We have provided support with respect to land clearing and land preparation. We have got to improve seedlings for them.
There will be no need for food importation at this point. Nigeria has the potential to feed itself and even be a next exporter of food items to other countries. And we do not also want to reverse some of the progress we have seen in terms of food production in this country.
However, recent market survey indicates that prices of grains like maize, sorghum, millet, and beans have remained stable in some informal markets against what was being experienced in the last couple of weeks. Musa Baba Aliyu.
Right, and that report sets the tone for tonight's discussion. Let's start off by introducing our guests. We'd like to welcome to this program Dr. Mohammed Goje is Executive Secretary, State Emergency Management Agency, Yobe State. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you very much for having me.
Right. Let me also welcome to the studio here Peter Dama, his National Chairman, Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, and Chairman Board of Trustees, Competitive African Rice Forum. CAF. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you.
It's good to see you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Same.
We have been joined via Zoom by Shehu Muazu. He is Commissioner for Agric, Kebbi State. He joins us via Zoom from Birnin Kebbi. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Mr. Cyril, good evening.
Good evening. And also with us tonight via Zoom is Akinloye Farinde. He's a professor of agricultural extension and rural development, Faculty of Agric, Obafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife. Thanks for being with us, Prof.
Good evening, Nigerians.
Okay. All right. So, as you well know, the nature of the program, at some point in time, it gets interactive. It means you can join in the conversation. But when it's that time, we'll remind you of the process and the procedure. For now, let's begin to look at the issues regarding the grain distribution to states and ensuring that it gets to the targeted, vulnerable, and other Nigerians who need it. So let's start off with the Executive Secretary of the Yobe State Emergency Management Agency, Dr. Mohammed Goji. What do you make of all this?
Thank you very much. Good evening, viewers, and thank you for having me on this program. To start with, I would like to commend Mr. President, Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, GCFR, for being proactive in directing the Minister of Agri to release the grains to the state. But I would also like to add that distribution of grains, distribution of palliatives to vulnerables does not require any rocket science. And the major thing to do, one, is to have the grains on ground. Government has declared, the Minister of Agri has already said they are in process of releasing them. And interestingly, for us in Yobe State, we received a letter from NEMA indicating the quantity of grains that is coming to our state. And immediately we received the letter, just like our previous distribution, His Excellency Governor Memala Buni directed that we be swung into action. So the letter contains the process, the procedures, the committee that we form. Of course, as a state, we have our local content, how that will benefit our vulnerable population. But that does not mean we are not going to comply with the federal directives. But immediately, as directed by the governor, within 48 hours of receiving the letter, we have met all the criteria to receive the grants.
Okay.
And that's not because we are very close to the federal government, but rather because of our experience in the past. During the COVID-19 palliative, during the recent fuel subsidy remote palliative with distribution, it has worked for us. And the support we received from His Excellency the Governor to act immediately, it is declared emergency, has really helped us. So we have met our committees from the state to the local government level. All the security formations, the DSS, NSCDC, all relevant committee members, including JNI, CAN, that form the membership of the committee, from the state to our 17 local governments. We have already identified them and we have submitted to NEMA. Additionally, we have submitted our location of our warehouses. We have equipped our warehouses with CCTV cameras. We have cleaned the warehouses. We are just ready to receive. But that's not enough. The other thing is, if we receive the item, are we going to keep the items? Or we just receive the item, we wait for the items to come before we start identifying our vulnerable population? No. We have vulnerable register, but of course, some people can graduate from vulnerability to be more stable. So His Excellency, as always, Governor Buni has directed that let's review our register. Let's look at the quantity that is coming to the state, in addition to what the state is procuring at the moment, add the two quantities, and then identify the vulnerable persons. And we do that through different means, bottom-top approach, involve the community, involve everybody, irrespective of political party, religious background. Everybody must come to the table, do community engagement meeting, tell them this is the quantity that's going to come to your community. If the quantity is only 10 bags that's coming to the community, out of the vulnerable persons in that community, we identify the vulnerable of the vulnerable. Are they persons living with disability, pregnant and lactating mothers? Are they IDPs in that community? Or are they orphans or orphanages? There are categories that will identify, that will narrow it.
All right. Well, we'll speak about that in greater detail, but just to get the records, you have been allocated how many, what's the amount of grains that you get in Yobe?
Yeah, so today the letter we received from NEMA through His Excellency our Governor, over 1,105 metric tons of assorted grains, which include maize, sorghum, millet, and in total, if you convert it to 50 kilogram bags, it will give you approximately over 21,000 bags of 50 kilogram of those assorted grains.
Okay.
And it should go across all the 17 local government areas.
All right, we'll come to that much later. But let's come to Peter Dama. And with this distribution, 42,000 metric tons have been approved to be distributed to the very vulnerable. What do you make of that?
Well, in as far as I am concerned, I think it is not enough. But then, it is something that has come out to show that government are concerned. And the little that the people can get, all we would say is that it should be properly distributed. Politics should not be brought in. People should be well identified, just as he has clearly stated. And these things are given to those who are actually, people who actually need them. And the people charged with the responsibility of doing the distribution, let them be honest enough. Because honesty is one aspect of our individual characters. If you're not honest, you find that some people will just carry these goods or materials straight to their homes. Then you get, in fact, within the vulnerables too, they have family members, maybe 10, 20. They come and queue up, or they continue giving their names interchangeably in order to, benefit from this distribution. So we believe and hope that these things would be taken care of so that these things will trickle down and everybody would be satisfied. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Let's go over to Commissioner for Agric, Kebbi State, Shehu Muazu, who is joining us via Zoom. And Commissioner, that's the same question we'll put to you. Have you also received communication about what's coming to your state, and what have you put on ground, or have you responded as well to the intended distribution of these grains?
Yes, Mr. Cyril, we have received communication of the initial 100,000 metric tons to be distributed, where Kebbi State is to benefit about 1,200 metric tons. This we have received almost 70% of the consignment. And in addition to the 70% we have received, my state governor, His Excellency Comrade Idris Nasiru, has purchased 6,000 metric tons of food to join to the near 700 metric tons we have received from the federal government. This has since been distributed. We have equally purchased another set of 6,000 metric tons, and we are ready to receive the counterpart from the federal government of the 42,000 metric tons to be released in the second phase of the federal government intervention. All this will be distributed to the vulnerable among us in our society.
Well, let me just ask you this. Quite a number of times people wonder how you put together, that's assuming you do have a register of the vulnerables, and how you put together that register and how you avoid certain discrepancies in determining who actually is vulnerable. What are the criteria? And tell us your experience in Kebbi State.
Mr. Cyril, coming up with a register of the most vulnerable in Nigeria today is a Herculean task. However, for us in Kebbi State, we have done the best we can through contacts with traditional institutions, contact with civil societies, contact with religious leaders, and as well as the civil This we have done, and to the glory of God, we have been able to come up with a register that we are using, which we have used in the first instance, and it is the same register we are going to use now in the next few days when we commence our second phase of palliative distribution to the most vulnerable people in Kebbi State.
Turn to you in just a moment, but let's go over to Professor Farinde, who's of the Agricultural Extension and Rural Development Faculty of Agric OAU Ile-Ife. Prof, this is one situation that if things were any better, you would not expect us at this point in time to be distributing 42,000 metric tons of grains. I mean, it does say that a lot is askew, doesn't it?
Thank you very much. Good evening, Nigerians, once again. What the approval and the release of the grain is telling us is that many things are at stake. One is pointing to and is confirming that there is high level of food insecurity in Nigeria. And that is why we are witnessing skyrocketing prices of food items in the markets. Again, it's also confirming that the issue of insecurity, the national insecurity in the country, is now rearing an ugly head. It's telling us that national insecurity is breeding so many security if care is not taken. Well, I want to commend the president for the approval, and that decision is for solving immediate problem of hunger. But personally, I believe that the release of grain and distribution to states cannot solve the problem. So we should look inward and see what we can do in the immediate, in the short time, and in the long run. Fine, the rain has started to fall in some part of Nigeria now, and it's time to encourage farmers and everybody to take to agriculture as primary occupation or secondary occupation. I would have loved a situation where the government look inward and review our situation critically and come up with a comprehensive program that would tackle the issue of food production in Nigeria, coupled with tackling the problem of national insecurity. Because what we are facing now, even if we have a comprehensive and broad-based national food program, the insecurity that we are witnessing will not allow farmers to go to their respective farm and produce food. So there are issues that complicate the whole matter for us. And it is time for us as Nigerian, both policymakers, academia, various organizations, private, to come to a round table and discuss the way forward. For me, what we are doing now, the distribution of grain cannot solve the problem. It's for the immediate. And if we give, even if one bag to the vulnerable, after that, what next? Are we not going to witness another, we are hungry again, even power? These are issues that we must look at. Let us look inward, because if you continue this way, we are going to empty the national reserve one day. And if we are not planning to produce another one to replace it, then we'll find ourselves in a mess that will not be able to solve the problem. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, of course, that's picking up from there. Yes, the question would be, it's okay to release grains. It's something of an emergency. People are going through pretty tough times. But we heard the minister in one of our reports there say 53,000 metric tons is what's available, out of which 42,000 has been released. Leaves just a balance of 11,000 metric tons. And he says that's because anything might happen. But these are the issues that Prof has just raised. What happens after this 42,000 metric tons have been consumed? And these challenges, you yourself have admitted that what is getting is just 1,105 metric tons, which hardly goes anywhere. It's 17 local governments, and the state has to now come in here.
So I think, just like the Prof has said, government is not just sleeping and not just giving palliatives for immediate relief. I am very sure President Bola Tinubu is looking inward to other alternative measures to ensure that we have gotten a lasting solution in the long term. But of course, while looking at those solutions, while looking at those processes to stabilize the economy, to improve our grain reserves, to also boost the agri sector in the country, government cannot keep quiet and say we are not going to give immediate relief. So immediate relief is also necessary, and it doesn't stop at government just releasing the grains to the state. But then the process starts from there. The state governors, community leaders, local government council, and including the end users should be part of using that commodities wisely, and also knowing fully that this is coming from our grain reserve. What shall we do next? Okay, the rainy season is coming in, setting in. There are opportunities to go back to the farm. Government is providing reliefs. There are reliefs that are coming in form of fertilizer from state governors. So these are opportunities that the end users must wake up, use it well, so that we will feed ourselves, not necessarily emptying our grain reserves. But of course, with the rising inflation, cost of fuel and other things, there are challenges. And that's why when one part of the government, the federal government, releases grains to the states, the expectation is state government should complement, local governments should bring their own relief. So relief can come, relief is a multi-sectoral. It can come through fuel subsidy, it can come through transport subsidy, it can come through food that you can put on your table. At times even not only raw, but also cooked food. But it is a multi-sectoral approach that will ease the ongoing challenges.
Well, let's put this across. Yes, he has talked about end users who must also make sure that they're part of it all. I'm looking at this very vulnerable group of people who are very far away from the local government headquarters. I'm not even talking about Abuja here, I'm talking about the local government headquarters. And because of prevailing circumstances, are unable to engage in farming activities as they used to. And now this trickles in. What do they understand about, National Grains Reserve?
I think they will look at it just like something coming from Father Christmas.
Right.
And from Father Christmas, they will continue to expect more. Expecting more, by the time they don't get it, then we have a problem. But just like the Prof has rightly said, that government has to do something. I believe that the federal government is doing something. More so that on the 14th of July 2023, this government declared an emergency on food security. It came out with a 12-point program dealing with fertilizer, dealing with security, dealing with, export, foreign exchange matters, grain, seeds, improvement, irrigation, and so on and so forth. What we are saying, we that are into farming and at the same time milling, the government should meet its pronouncements with commitment. Once they are committed, like my colleague here has just spoken about fertilizers, we've just started having the rains. Have the fertilizers gotten to the farmers? These are some of the challenges. Let these things get to the people, the farmers, as and when due, so that the production would come up and then it will help in resolving some of these problems.
Since we're on the subject of this, let me come to you on this matter. You are the national chairman of the Rice Millers Association.
Yes.
Recall that a couple of years ago, we widely celebrated that we were almost there in being
pyramids.
We had, the rice pyramid, the famous rice pyramids.
Yeah. We had the pyramids in different geopolitical zones.
Exactly.
And we ended it up here in Abuja.
Yes.
Where we had a lot, although Nigerians were disputing whether it was a fact, but it was a fact.
Right.
Because some of us, the millers, actually got paddy to go to our mills to mill.
So mostly what we saw in the exhibition was paddy.
Was paddy.
Now the question is, after that, what happened? Has that tempo been sustained? Because this was 2 years back.
The tempo couldn't have been sustained because of the issue of insecurity. Farmers were being kidnapped, farmers were being killed, farmers could not return to their farms. Then you recall there was this CBN intervention. Incidentally, that intervention project, the Ankoa Borough project, stopped.
Right. Today it's under the scrutiny of the Senate.
Well, it's under wherever. But what we are saying, whatever, the scrutiny can go on, but we want it back. Or they should recapitalize the Bank of Agriculture, where farmers can go, get facilities, and return to farm. Already the government has spoken about security. They have talked about farmer rangers or rangers in the farm to provide security, cover for the farmers. We expect that they would actually follow up that with proper action, that these things are implemented so that the farmers are protected and they go back to their farms.
Well, in addition to the discussions in the studio, we also have a number of reports which speak to the subject. Let's take the first in this series, and this one is from Lagos.
Eunice Rotimi, a point-of-sale POS operator, has dependents whom she caters for, with proceeds from her business. This is not the best of times for her, as she spends more than usual on feeding. So, each day, she hopes for more profit to enable her put food on her family's table. Although Lagos residents are yet to receive the grains the federal government promised to distribute through states to cushion the effects of the current economic hardship, the news has brought hope to Eunice.
I have those people that are looking on to me. So by sharing the grains, the food stuff, at least it will help them, it will go a long way.
Just like Eunice, some Lagos residents say distribution of the 42,000 metric tons of grains across all states of the Federation is a step in the right direction.
I would like to appeal to whoever is in charge, from federal government coming down to the state level to local government and to everyone that will be in charge. So please ensure it gets to the right people.
You know, the family size matters too. So if the family size is large, then they should be considered for more. If it is not large, then what is adequate to them should be given to them.
Government says it will work with the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, and the Department of State Service, DSS, to ensure the grains get to the right people in the right packages and quantities.
I also think we should also start using technology. The ICC has improved tremendously in the last 30 years with GSM and all the rest in place. So to me, this is the time we should use our identities, NIN, BVN, and all those means of identity, coordinate them and use them for events like this.
Apart from the distribution of grains, the federal government says 58,500 metric tons of milled rice from mega rice millers will be released into the market for stabilization. In Lagos, Hingino, John Adams.
All right, the next report comes from Enugu.
In the pursuit of national food security, countries often establish strategic reserve to safeguard against unforeseen circumstances that may threaten the availability and affordability of essential commodities. Nigeria, recognizing the importance of a stable food supply, maintains national reserves for grains to mitigate the impact of emergencies and fluctuations in production. The growing concerns and agitations over hardship in the country has made it imperative to fall back on the national reserves.
What I have here, very small. This is worth more than 10,000 naira. Fuel price is the crux of the matter. It affected everything, even the food you eat.
With the announcement of the approval and release of 42,000 metric tons of grains like garri, maize, millet, and other commodities to the vulnerable Nigerians nationwide, the news brought hopes to the people in the Southeast Zone who are calling for reliable and equitable distribution system.
The problem is always mismanagement in distribution.
Though the grains have not been received in the Southeast Zone, but a committee has been set up on how to distribute the commodities, while the appropriate authorities in charge of supervision say once the process is completed, the intervention will be sent to state for distribution.
Because if we are distributing, we distribute with the State Emergency Management Agency and the local governments too, and the local emergency committees, plus security agencies, so that everybody will see that these things were distributed in a transparent manner.
The economic hardship occasioned by the rising cost of food in Nigeria has become very challenging for an average Nigerian, including civil servant, to afford 3 square meals daily. With the release of the palliatives, expectations are high, though there are fears on mismanagement of the commodities when it finally arrives.
There is nothing like mismanagement in the distribution of these items. The problem is that everybody needs these items, and that is why they allege that when NEMA receives these items, they keep it for themselves. No. We have to plan very, very well so that these items get to the people they are meant for.
For now, it is not clear as to when the palliatives will get to the Southeast Zone, but the target audience are waiting eagerly with high hopes to receive it.
All right, from Enugu, let's come to Kaduna to see what the situation is like.
To cushion the effects of the removal of fuel subsidy, which has in turn impacted on the prices of goods and services, especially staple food items like grains, the federal government announced plans to distribute assorted grains as a deliberate strategy to ameliorate the suffering of Nigerians. In Kaduna State, Governor Obasani set up a committee headed by the Deputy Governor Hadiza Sabwa Balarabe, consisting of members of the civil society, religious leaders, and other stakeholders to ensure transparent and even distribution of the grains to the target beneficiaries, though the grains are still being expected.
First of all, secure the warehouses within the state to make sure that, first of all, the grains are safe. Only if we have a conducive atmosphere, we will be able to have HP distribution for the needy.
Kaduna State government is also making plans to complement whatever is given by the federal government with its own grains distribution exercise.
Kaduna State, as a government, are putting all its best to make sure it provides necessary security and necessary manpower to make sure that the grains meet the needy across the 20 local government of the state. So this is where we are, and we are hoping and always ready to see more people, more donors that will come to our aid in terms of relief and this kind of palliatives in this trying time as far as food security is concerned.
All is now set for the expected grains to be supplied by the federal government through the National Emergency Management Agency. Dauda Mohammed.
All right, let's return to our guests and let's go to the Commissioner for Agriculture, Kebbi State, Shehu Muazu. Now, you've seen a number of those reports, and an underlying factor is a matter of transparency, as well as security, ensuring that when those items are brought, they're secure. Just a couple of weeks ago, the nation was awash with reports of people, storming warehouses and breaking in and helping themselves to what's been stored in those warehouses. So that creates the need for additional security for all that. But beyond all that is the question of transparency, that the grains actually get to those who have been described as the most vulnerable of the vulnerable. And then how do you ensure? Because sometimes you find this happening. People who are described as vulnerable get these items, but they turn around and sell some of those items. How do you ensure that they use them?
Mr. Cyril, please allow me to digress a bit and concur with the chairman, president of the Millers Association. Let me also join him to ask the government to please return back that process of helping farmers with inputs to produce more food, as has been done during the Anko-Boros program. It was a program that we have seen it has succeeded as far as producing food for Nigeria is concerned. And it is only production that would take us out of the present situation we find ourselves. That being said, transparency as far as distribution of palliatives in Kebbi State is our watchword. His Excellency, Comrade Nasir Idris, is from the Labour family. He's a welfarist by nature. He ensures what is due for the masses get to the masses. That is why we have set up a very, very powerful committee that, as I said earlier, that comprises the civil society associations, the labor union, the traditional institutions, as well as the civil servants, in addition to all the tiers of the security agencies in the state. This we have done in the first instance, that is after the declaration of food emergency on food security by Mr. President. The first batch of the palliatives we have distributed in Kebbi State, it has recorded the best result we have expected, because the vulnerables that were targeted have gotten it and they have confessed to that. Equally, that has helped to bring down the prices of food as at then when we did the distribution of the palliatives. So similarly, the next one we are going to launch in a couple of days is equally going to follow that food step. We are going to maintain the committees, and we are going to put more vigor, more watch, more eyes to see that those that are targeted to receive the palliatives are the ones that benefited. In fact, the issue of the beneficiaries selling the palliative food is something that is beyond the government. It's something that government cannot stop, because there are families, because of their vulnerability, they need money for healthcare, for medicines, for medications. There are families that need money for shelters, and some of them sell this food for those immediate needs of medication and what have you. But with the glory of God, palliatives are an interim measure. So we are going to continue, and we have come up with a program that we feel will continue to produce food and produce food massively for our people and the federal government and the people of Nigeria at large. Thank you.
All right, let's go over to Professor Farindi and put the same issues before him. People might have other needs, other pressing needs. Yes, they need food, but sometimes they also need medicine, they need health care. And so the food they get might well be deployed to some other use by way of selling to get the needed funds for something else. That's one part of it. But again, the federal government is coming up with this initiative. States are complementing. But should local governments and the subnationals continue to wait for the federal government, the central government, to lead the way in addressing the needs of the people who are mostly within their domain? That's another aspect of it. And again, the role of those who hoard food items, create their artificial scarcity so as to profiteer from whatever situation that arises. I would like you to address that.
Thank you very much. Like I said before, it is a complex situation and that needs a critical analysis and thinking for us to be able to solve the problem. For the end users that are beneficiaries of this palliative, turning around to sell them to take care of other needs, is also confirming that there are other areas of needs that must be satisfied by the government, the community in which they are living, and even relations who are well-to-do among them. And so it is also the responsibility of the community so that communities also come to the aid of the vulnerables within themselves so that they also play their own role. This is a pointer to the fact that the community leader should not be left out of distribution of this palliative to the vulnerables. If they are involved, they will know other areas of need for the vulnerables, and when the palliative finish, they can also come around and look for a way of assisting these people to continue their way of life. As for the hoarders, people who hoard this produce, we have them around. It's a business. In economics, they call them wholesalers, but we have people more than the wholesalers now. Deliberately, they want to profit from even what government is releasing now. They want to corner one or two things. Even the vulnerable we are talking about, these people will be busy now mobilizing them to get these materials for them so that they can export to other nations or even sell at skyrocket prices in the market. So I don't know, like the Commissioner for Agriculture said, the turning around of the vulnerable to sell is beyond the government or anybody. Because if the thing is given to them, it becomes their own personal goods. So if they sell, well, there's nothing we can. We cannot arrest them. We cannot prosecute them. But what we can ensure is that we can ask the community leader and community people to be a watchdog over these people. So the community should be involved, not government alone. The local government.
Okay, right. Go ahead.
The issue of local government. The local government has been crippled for long, and so they cannot perform their natural responsibility to the people. They are the first set of government, the government that is very close to the people. This thing we are talking about palliative, they're supposed to have identified this problem and come around to assist these people, even before the state government, before the federal government. But because they have been crippled by their appropriation of budgets, so they cannot do anything now. They are just looking at what is going to happen, and everybody is looking at federal government to do everything, and that will not solve the problem. The states and the local government, they have their statutory responsibility, which they must come around to identify and then play it as supposed to be done.
All right, let me just stay a little longer with you, Prof. In your opening remarks, you talked about the need to put all hands on deck so as to ensure that Nigeria develops a robust system of ensuring food security. Surely institutions such as yours have a key role to play in this regard. I'm looking at a situation where the little that you even produce now is lost because of poor storage, very little or no value addition, and of course the matter of research, even from the basics of extension services, ensuring that farmers have used the best practices to produce more. Now, how much would you say the institutions that are related to ensuring increased production, how much have they helped in driving food security in this country? Institutions such as yours, for instance.
Yes, thank you very much. The educational institution, research institutions, they are playing their own role when it's come to research, when it's come to teaching, when it's come to community services. But I want to say, for us to know this evening, that there is a gap between government and this institution. Government is not patronizing. If government is spending on this institution, and then they are not calling them upon to come and solve this problem, then something is wrong somewhere. We have researches, we have technologies all over, which are end product of research in all these institutions. But how many of these technologies have been deployed or taken up by farmers or the end users? Few of them, because extension has been suspended for long. The central bank, the World Bank, after withdrawal of the World Bank from agricultural development program, because it was a tripartite arrangement, the federal government, the states, and the World Bank. But after the lifespan of that project, of that grant, federal government hands off, the states that has been given the responsibility of providing extension services in Nigeria also hands off. And so the farmers are left alone. We also witnessed some intervention projects, Fadama 1, Fadama 2, Fadama 3, extension of Fadama. All those programs, they came around and they have made a lot of impact on the lives of farmers. But they have ended now. We also have the River Development Basin Authority. All these programs are there. But we are not looking at them again. And that's why I said, let us look inward. The director of private Miller was talking about irrigation. The shortcut of providing irrigation, medium scale irrigation to farmers is through the River Basin Development Authority. And we have extensive wetland in Nigeria, which we can use to produce rice. But we are not making use of all these things again. And that's why I said, let us look inward and review all these programs, come up with a robust, take the best of this, the best of Fadama, the best of ADP, and then come over again. During the last administration, in 2023, there was an attempt to revive the ADP, that about 1,000 extension agents will be trained and employed in each of the 774 local governments. That means we should have provided job for 774,000 extension agents who are Nigerians. If they have started working, we'll be witnessing the impact of that, because we know what happened during the lifespan of agricultural development, the statewide agricultural development program. So there is a lot that the university is doing, Faculty of Agriculture, colleges of agriculture, research institutions, agricultural research institute all over Nigeria. We have them, they have their mandate, and they have a lot of technology. But the extension agent who will assist farmers to take up this technology, they are not there. And we are producing graduates in extension all over Nigerian universities. So I think we need to bridge the gap, look at the resources we have on ground, and then deploy them adequately. That will solve the problem.
All right, thank you, Prof. We'll return to you in a moment. Back here in the studio in Abuja, here also with the Executive Secretary of the Yobe State Emergency Management Agency, and this, of course, brings us to the matter of how sustainable these efforts are for you. You say you also have plans, or you have worked out modalities for where you continue to work towards producing more. But this, for instance, how sustainable is this? This on the one hand. And the second part of it is that when you have situations like this where you carry out distribution, again, we look at the psychological factor for those who are referred to as the vulnerables. And it doesn't paint a good picture, does it, when you find people queuing up for handouts like that? People have suggested a better approach towards this. Any plans in looking ahead beyond this question of, in this very, how do I put it? You look at it, Nigeria is not at war, but you look as if, it looks as if it's a war situation where handouts are being given to people who can not even afford to feed.
Thank you very much. I will start from the second one. And I think it's even more when you are in the field and when you see the vulnerable person. I saw someone in the field just a couple of weeks ago receiving palliative, and he was shedding tears. And when I approached him, he said he used to give out food in his community as part of his output. He used to give out 10, 20 bags free, but today he is here receiving palliative. So there were more stories in the field when you see. But then, as I said earlier, government has a multi-sectoral approach to these problems. Like for instance, in Yobe State, His Excellency Governor Buni has already put in place a lot of initiatives in the agri-sector that will boost production this year. And some of these initiatives involves giving farmers opportunity and access to farmland. Because of insecurity, there are a lot of challenges to access to farmland, but there were a lot of improvements now. Farmers can work farmland. But if farmers want to go back to farmland and there's no food on the table and there's no provision to even provide that palliatives, that will also discourage them from going to the farm. So that's why, while other sectors are responding to revitalize the agri, give improved seedlings, fertilizers at a cheaper price, or loans to the farmers to access the farm, the vulnerable that cannot go to the farm or need something to put on their table before they go to the farm must be provided with food basket. And it also goes down to say, if you are providing the relief, if you are providing the palliatives to the farmers or to the vulnerable, does that justifies bringing them to receive it in conditions that you pity them? At times it's no, but in most cases there are justification, because you need the person that will receive the items, you need to identify that person, you need to define his vulnerability criteria, you need to justify that yes, he's a true beneficiary before you give that item to him. And that also justifies and gives hope to others that either they are not vulnerable or the commodities have not reached them. If government is doing it in community A, and if government is involving political party A, B, C, D, religious leaders, community leaders, stakeholders, that means it will also come to us. But a situation whereby whether you use technology or you use people through their vendors, through their community shops to give the items to, that will not solve most of the problem, because it will create more tension that government is holding, government is not distributing. But the most important thing is give the ration to the most vulnerable person, and also look for alternative livelihood means that that person can use, and that will sustain him in the long run. And the other aspect of, in the long run, what is the government doing? Of course, for us that came out from the conflict, decade-long conflict from Borno, Yobe, and Adamawa, and specifically Yobe, we have a share of our challenges. But of course, the challenges has taught us a lot of lessons. We have learned a lot of lessons, a lot of skills because of the conflict, because of presence of donors, presence of international organizations. And what we are doing now is to do it our own way. If you want to support our people, the governor has said, okay, start from bottom-top approach. And most importantly, we are lucky that our governor has an ear to the ground. The community can easily access him. There are a lot of feedback mechanism. So when donors come into the state, they adopt the state policy. Where are the gaps? Where are we going to key in? This has also helped to devise some alternative means. We are now developing a lot of programs that will, in the long run, give livelihood opportunities to thousands of households, not depending on the food ration or on the food basket. But that will not stop us from ensuring that they eat before they go to farm. There's season that comes where you don't have in the silo and it's not yet time for harvest. And you need to eat before you go to the farm. And worse is, even if you cannot transport yourself to the farm, you cannot buy fuel to fuel your machines in the farm, at least if you can eat and be strong to walk to the farm, that can help reduce some of the burden. And government can always cushion the effect, but of course, there are more alternative means to solve the problem at the long run.
Well, someone said that Nigeria has no business being poor with all the resources that it has. But it's all about policies not being followed through. Those who are charged with the responsibility to carry these policies out hardly ever do. And where there are breaches, and of course, it's said that most of what we do is mainly in the breach, and there are no consequences. People are not held accountable. So even if you plan ahead and you provide immediate succor, again, the question is, what are you building in society to change this mentality around? There are obviously some who are up there who are not affected by what's going on. Or even if they are, they have their ways and means. Excuse the use of that word.
Well, you see, as I said, honesty in all that we do carries the day. If you're not honest, whatever program you have, whatever arrangement you have, it is not going to work. And I would want to go back a little before I come onto your this thing. You see, the issue of vulnerability has affected almost every strata of the Nigerian society today. Why? Because even the middle class is being wiped off. Because, take for example, the rate of unemployment, the rate of poverty has made it in such a way that you are unable to even access food or good life. You are not able to access any of these things. Just like I am telling you, we have retirees in the Federal Civil Service. Mm-hmm. You've retired at the very last level of directorate. You are earning 60,000 naira as your pension because you retired under contributory pension scheme. Today, rise is 75,000 naira. How do you cope up? So can you see that you are also vulnerable? So this vulnerability cuts across, and unless we take into consideration our welfare packages to be able to take care of us, we are also part of the vulnerable people in the society. So it is a big problem, and this has to be addressed properly. And how do we address these issues? As I have said earlier, we have to improve our cultivation. We have to get improved seeds. I was so saddened when I saw in one of the networks a governor coming to say that he wants the federal government to give him import permit for him to import paddy. Is that not throwing off our jobs? Is that not throwing out the jobs of our farmers? What would you talk about the farmers that have been cultivating and now you're throwing them off? that person is coming from a coastal area where we have tributaries, water lines that can be properly utilized if I agree with Professor Farinde,
yes,
right? With all the researches they have been conducting, they will be able to research, or they would have done a lot of researches. And if they have not gotten it right, under South-South Cooperation, we have opportunity of relating with our non-aligned groups, people of the international community, to develop seeds that can grow and be ready for harvesting in 30 days, that can feed this nation. We can feed ourselves rather than talking of all these palliatives.
Okay.
The palliatives, just as you have said, it's not good. For me, I know why I'm talking about retirees.
Mm-hmm.
I would not go and queue up. I retired as a federal director, but if I tell you my pension today, you weep for me.
And incidentally, this group of people you speak about, this category, little or nothing has been done about, their situation. Not even by the labor unions, who talk about those who are still in employment, and people there's hardly anyone who's talking about their plight, and they don't regard them as vulnerable as well.
No. So you see, we have to draw this attention so that when we are addressing these issues, we should be able to address it holistically.
We'll take a short break here. When we return, there'll be more on the issues at stake, and then the phone lines will be open and you can get to contribute to the discussions in the studio. So stay with us on NTA Tuesday Live. We'll be back shortly.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experienced it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
NTA Tuesday Live, a network issue-oriented innovation talk show.
Thanks for staying with us. Now this segment, shortly, of course, we'll open the phone lines. It means you can get to join the conversation in the studio, and we say this every Tuesday. If you're calling in tonight and your call gets through, do us a favor, turn down the volume of your TV set. That's the way to avoid the hurlback or the echo. And we encourage you to go straight to the point, keep it short and simple. And also, do not bother too much about the greetings. Just a simple hello. We always say this every Tuesday, just hello, and go ahead with a question or your comment. And I guess here we'll address such issues as you might raise. We start off with another of our reports. This time, let's bring in a report from Uyo.
The release and distribution of the 42,000 metric tons of grains approved by the federal government is to cushion the effect of inflationary costs of food on Nigerians, especially grains. In Akwa Ibom State, the federal government's 50,000 metric ton capacity of grain reservoir located in Okobo is awaiting this gesture from the federal government, in which Akwa Ibom people affirm will go a long way to put food on tables of the vulnerable.
Like this rice that they send during this Christmas time, it was sent to all the local government. Like this Anwabio that I am living, our chief there did it well. Even if you are a visitor, I'm not from that place, they gave it to visitors.
Sure, I have heard about that. That grains will be distributed to the citizens of Nigeria. But the problem always is how this thing gets to the poor people in real sense.
The federal government is doing their best, but those are in charge of distribution of these grains are those that we cannot trust. They will instead take this grain for themselves, claiming to be the most vulnerable.
Efforts by the state government to also promote food preservation and procurement of food at favorable prices through the newly introduced bulk purchase agency have been ongoing. For the people, there are expectations that there will be proper distribution of grains when it finally comes to Akwa Ibom State. Government authorities declined comments on the receipt of grains or mode of distribution in Akwa Ibom State. In Uyo, Evelyn Badu Ekpo.
And now let's get this other one from Jalingo.
Paul Tiav is a retiree of the Taraba State Civil Service and Secretary of the Nigerian Union of Pensioners, Taraba State Chapter. He said he and other retirees are yet to benefit from the recent pronouncement by the federal government that grains be distributed to vulnerable persons across the country. Mr. Tiav, however, said officials of the union in the state got 20 50-kilogram bags of rice in December last year after they applied to the Taraba State Palliative Care Committee.
In future, if there is anything going to be shared in form of in organizations, our union carries the 16 local governments. If it is given holistically or wholly to our union, we'll be able to reach out to our branches so that they will also benefit from it wholly.
Like Paul Tiav, Ali Matudi Terinke, chairman of the National Association of People with Disabilities, Taraba State Chapter, said members of his association have not yet benefited from the recent approval of grains to be distributed nationwide. Mr. Terinke, however, said the association in the state benefited from the first and second phases of grains that were shared last year.
We are expecting that if it arrived in our state, definitely the Taraba State government, as usual, because he has the people with disability in mind, which we believe if they start the distribution process, we will be called upon to come and also take part and collect our own share.
Chairman, Taraba State Palliative Care Committee, Salih Saad, said the state is still expecting the recently approved grains from the federal government. Mr. Saad added that the state received grains twice from the federal government, which were distributed to the vulnerable in the 16 local government areas of the state. He said 10,000 youths in Taraba State are being paid 15,000 naira monthly to sweep the streets of towns across the state as part of measures to cushion the effect of fuel subsidy removal.
As we await the arrival of this second phase, I want to say it, make it abundantly clear to Tarabians that same modalities, same mechanism will still be put in place, ensuring the one and all is being carried along.
As the economy bites harder, the vulnerable look forward to a time when succor would come their way. In Jalingo, Bem Hanya.
All right, even as that report was on, the calls had started coming in, and we have our first caller, Isa, who's calling from, yes, Kaduna. Isa is calling in from Kaduna. Hello, Isa, go ahead.
My name is Isa, calling from Kaduna.
Right.
I'm going to the point 6. So, what is the end point of giving palliatives? They are giving palliatives for how many months? And when it stopped, so how will the federal government continue giving the palliative to the vulnerable? First. Secondly, I'm going to this person to the refund person. How the problem of paddy is causing a lot of problem in the rice mill. And
Can hear him.
Oh dear. Isa, are you still there? Oh dear, I guess we lost that call. Just as he was beginning to talk about some challenges with paddy, and we're going to ask you to respond to that. But okay, thanks Isa. If you can call back, would appreciate it. So we'll try to get to the bottom of what you were trying to raise about challenges with paddy. But in any case, he started off by asking the same question about the sustainability of the distribution of palliatives, and a number of our guests have already spoken about that. But let's put it across once more to yes, okay, we have another caller from Jos. So this is another Isa, right? But this one is from Jos. Go ahead.
Yes. Good evening, gentlemen on the press. This is Isa Father calling directly from Jos,
Okay.
Mr. Siri.
Right.
Yes. I stand to be corrected, Mr. Siri. You see, the federal government is not getting it on track. Why? Because my reason being that nobody is complaining about the shortage of food in the market, but rather complaining about the value for accessing the food. I want to align my opinion with that of the probe, who says that the federal government need to address the short-term plan and the long-term plan for farmers. If we can be able to address the issue of insecurity, number one, also encourage the farmers, number two, also make a very conducive atmosphere for everybody to access this food in the market. I tell you, food issues will be the thing of the past in the country. I stand Isa Father directly from Jos. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to hear my opinion. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Isa Father from Jos. Well, we were just going to go to Professor Farinde to comment on that, and so it's right there. He says, you know, there's something that's still not been done right. Prof.
Thank you very much. Like I said, distribution of palliative will not solve the problem on ground. We need to address the immediate problem of farmers, and that is the national insecurity. We should solve the problem of how farmers will be safe on their farm so that they will have a conducive environment to practice and to do what they know best to do. And so I want to quickly add this message for the media organization, and it's directly to Cyril Stober. I want the NTA to partner with the higher institution so that every week we'll have a message for the farmer, land preparation, how to plant, the management of their crops, management of the animal. We have the resources on ground, and we have all those things to deploy to farmers and advise them appropriately. So, NTA networks, we want to partner with you, the educational institutions. If you can do that, it will help in solving this immediate problem. The long time, I've said we need to come around. The policymaker the decision makers in the Ministry of Agriculture, colleges of agriculture, universities, research institutions, and the media houses. Let's come around and come up with a comprehensive, robust program for our farmers in the country. With this pocket of intervention will not solve our problem. Nations that have solved their food insecurity, they have a robust program so that every year, day in, day out, if there's anything in weather change, they know what to do to adjust or modify their program and the structure on ground so that they quickly address the problems of climate change. So if you can do that together with the private individuals, private farmers, I think we are good to go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Well, the NTA certainly is no stranger to programs such as the one you recommended. Matter of fact, in the past, the NTA had a robust agricultural program which it put on air for many years, and it was a weekly program. However, your points are noted. Let's take this call from Nathaniel, who's calling in from Kogi. Hello, Nathaniel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Bimi Nathaniel Odoromo. I'm calling from Kogi State.
Right, go ahead.
First and foremost, I just want to point out that instead of, first, I commend the distribution, all right. But I want to point out that instead of this handout of this palliative of 18, all those that read Agric, why can't the government, organize them in such a way, that local government by local government, borrow a land for them, and empower them with equipment, generally. What is at hand now, I consider it an emergency. The crisis we are in now is a big-time emergency. Secondly, for a very long time, tractor disappeared from practically all our farmers. It is a thing the state can address, the state alone. And my shock is that everybody's attention is on the federal government. Nobody is talking about the capacity and ability of the state government at all. This is not helping matter, whereas resources is available even at the state level. Now, lastly, I want to point out that agric production comes in various forms. Either poultry, another animal thing, food of whatever description and nature. If we will take 50 or 100 individuals who are ready to go into farming and get the various extension officers to just train them for 1 week, not giving them money to go and but there is from seed to whatever other equipment should be converted into money for them. I'm not saying giving them money cash, but these materials, once they are given, there will be production. I will be surprised what can be produced in just one season. Now, to make the thing very easy, we are entering rainy season gradually. Rain has started in some places. So thank you very much. This is my opinion. I am Bimi Nathaniel Olorunbo. Thank you very much.
Right, thank you. Thank you for your contributions. And let's just take it straight to Commissioner Shehu Mazu, Commissioner for Agric, Kebbi State. You just heard a last caller talk about mechanized agriculture and what states are doing. Perhaps you could let us into what Kebbi State has on ground in terms of improvement of agricultural practices, and so we stop seeing this presentation of the hoe and cutlass when we talk about agriculture.
To us in Kebbi State, our governor believes that palliatives are a temporary measure. That is why he has gone ahead to launch his agricultural development and growth agenda, tagged Kadagi. Kadagi is an ambitious program that seeks to modernize the agricultural practice in Kebbi State, seek to make agricultural infrastructures such as dams, pivot irrigation systems available. The target is to inject 2 million metric tons of food into the system. This is what we have. And as I tell you, since after the launch of the program, we have so far procured and we are distributing 7,300 solar-powered irrigation pumps. We are equally procured 10,000 LPG powered irrigation pumps. We have equally procured and we are going to start distributing 10,000 conversion kits. We have equally procured 300 power tillers, which we have given to our farmers. We have equally procured and distributed 3,000 motorized pump sprayers. These are all targeted towards reducing the cost of production. By the time we produce the cost of production and lessen the load labor need required for the production, we'll definitely move ahead. Mr. Cyril, our current problem is a small problem that we can address if we squarely look at production. A complete cycle for agricultural production is just between 4 and 5 months. You are done with production. So if we can inject capital into production, we provide the necessary extension services. It is just a matter of 5 months. All this talk about food shortage, food insecurity will go. We have done it in the past. We know it is the capital that farmers are liking. Why not we support these farmers with capital, and we support them with mechanization, we support them with extension services. In 5 months' time, I assure you, Mr. Cyril, the issue of food will be a vital matter in Nigeria. Equally, we can invest in small duration variety of foods. We have tubers that can grow between 60 and 70 days. Once we divert from, we include them in our national production, very soon the lean period will come. The real food scarcity will not be there until between July and August. That is usually the lean period. So if we can inject, bring up programs that will go into production of short duration food varieties or tubers, I'm telling you, it will help us a lot. For us in Kebbi State, we have already gotten the nod from His Excellency Comrade Nasru that we should go ahead, and we are moving ahead. We have included potato into our own dry season program. Apart from rice and maize, potato is coming on board too, because it's going to add to the basket of food that we produce in this country, which is what we need. Thank you.
Thanks. And back to the phone now, we have Ada calling from Jos, another of our regular callers. Hello.
Ada calling from Jos, Plateau State. Very interesting conversation. You see, the problem is the federal government is really underrating the scope of the issue. When you say distribute the grains to vulnerable people, what do you mean by vulnerable people? The situation has got to the point, but 80% of Nigerians are now vulnerable. That is the issue. That is what is making it disastrous. So we'll be deceiving ourselves, living in self-denial, talking about it in terms of being vulnerable. So what I suggest is that they should address the fundamentals, the type of farming, whether it's a mechanized farming or whether it's with the hoe or whatever. It's not even the issue. The issue is there is general insecurity, and that is what has fueled the food insecurity. So the government should do as much as it can to tackle this issue of insecurity. One, farmers cannot go to the farms because of this insecurity. Again, let them have the political will and ban open grazing. Let them adopt ranching. Help people to get their cattle ranched. Let it be done state by state, whatever. I think recently I heard when the FG was saying that the federal government was saying that they're reaching out to states to give him land. Let him liaise with them and let them do what they can to ranch cattle. That is another thing. So that we now, secure the cattle. There will be cattle rustling again because it will be easy to secure those cattle. And then that will now, curb this clash that used to happen between farmers and headers. That's one way of addressing the issue. So once all that is done, Nigerians are very resilient people. Even the subsistence farming can even feed us. If they can, people can go back to their farm, but they cannot. So it's not a question of whether it's irrigation farming, whether it's this one farming or that one farming. No matter the kind of farming, people cannot get to the farm to even farm. That's it. So this distribution Yes, I commend them, but it left for me is just a waste of time. And you know, corruption that goes on in Nigeria. You look at the cost of it. You saw what happened. 7 people died in the process, and yet most of the people who got it were not even people who need it. So people got it and went back and resold it. You see, that's the Nigerian problem. You know, the other thing is that the greatest palliative is the refineries. We have heard these stories, times that number, the Port refinery will still start working, this and that, they are doing testing, this and that. Dangote that we're all clapping our hands for, he's on now, but he has problems, he cannot get enough crude. You know, so what are we talking about? These are the major problems. If the refineries are not working and then the pump price of fuel doesn't come down, it will affect the other factors of production. It will affect it. So when people say, oh, the people producing tomatoes at their backyard, how come it's expensive, tomatoes? The person who produces tomatoes, will the person eat tomatoes? Will the person use tomatoes to pay school fees? You know, so the person has to buy other things too. So that is it. All the time, let's argue for Nigeria, shall be well. Ladema.
Thank you very much. Ada from Jos. Well, Dr. Goji, that's part of the issues here. And again, while efforts are on to provide some form of relief for those who are worst affected by the situation in the country, you also do have those who are accused of trying to take advantage of the situation in terms of the high cost of food. And you do find Nigerians asking that. Some of these things, what do they have to do with the exchange rate? But again, from what Ada, our last caller, was saying, every other thing affects. So what would be the solution to this? Where is the starting point? Where do you begin to attack all of this, so we do not create the situation where you would have to be distributing grains?
Yeah, I think no leader will sleep while there are challenges across the country. And as I said earlier, it is not just one aspect. Palliative and grain distribution is just one aspect of it. There were different sectors, different approaches that government at different level are making effort to close the gaps. And this conversation is one of the things. It's one other aspect. Of course, it's an opportunity to people to talk, share ideas, and it's another aspect. But there are more to that. More in the sense that when you believe that we're producing crops in the country and you can't relate them with exchange rate, it doesn't mean, because anything that you do, whether you buy it in the country or outside, you import it, there are the value chain of the market links from one to the other. So while one aspect is being addressed as a short term, as immediate relief, there are other aspects in medium term and long term that will be addressed so that collectively we will resolve it. But the bottom line, as most of the speakers have said, is addressing the security challenges, empowering the youths to go back to farm, empowering the youths to have means of livelihood, and empowering our farmers to use mechanized farming, more innovative ways of farming. And the conversation should not just stop at maybe agri conversation on NTA. Most of our farmers don't even watch NTA, but there are levels that will go down to the community level, religious leaders in mosques and churches, and let us adopt the conventional and ways of passing message to our communities to improve production. And as one of our colleagues from the Kebbi State has said, of course, if we can holistically invest in the production cycle for that particular period of time, there will be result. But of course, there are areas that you cannot invest, even if you want to invest, because there are no access. And if that place, people cannot go to farm, they cannot access farm, because whether they are IDPs or there are crises in those communities, while security agents are addressing the security aspect, of course, government will not sit down without providing palliative to the people that cannot go to farm. If they cannot go to farm, and no matter the risks, they cannot go to farm, government must provide palliative for them so that they can survive, while securities are making effort to ensure that it is safe to go and access the farm. And other aspects also will produce the opportunities for mechanized farming, opportunities for improved seedlings, and together, collectively, will reach the promised land. But most importantly is the will to do it, and also for us, the end users, and also those that are saddled with the responsibility to believe that it is doable.
Okay, we'll count that. Back to the phone lines. Afolabi is calling in from Kwara State. Hello, Afolabi.
Good evening, sir. Tuesday Live.
Good evening.
Yeah. We really appreciate the effort of the federal government. But the major problem in Nigeria are the Nigerian governors. Are you with me, sir?
Yes, we are. Go ahead.
Yeah. The major problem in Nigeria are the Nigerian governors. Up till now, as anything is coming, none of them has prepared land for people to do agriculture, expecting federal government palliative. 774 local governments in Nigeria can have a farm center. Farm center is required in every local government in Nigeria. Such that the state government will clear land, certain numbers of hectares in every local government in Nigeria, for rice, for where they have advantage. Like in Japan, they have one village, one product in Japan. Nigerian Minister of Nigerian Bank of Agriculture went to China to go and copy what they are doing. Also, now they could not implement anything. Sir, ask all these governors, with all the money they have received from federal government, what have they done with it at the state level concerning agriculture to solve the problem, expecting palliative? To get this right, every state government, every local government must have a farm center. Like in the Western region in those days, during the Awolowo regime. In Ondo, in Ife, we have farm centers. What is wrong in Kwara having a farm center in every local government? Clear land. The major problem for the farmer is land clearing. If you clear land, employ graduates, put them there, give them stipend every month, spend it the time the seed will come out, and when it comes out, buy it and sell it to the public. But instead of that, all of them are doing irrelevant projects, construction of bad bridge that does not have value to the people. Up to now, we are shouting, this is mad. In parts of Nigeria, in Kwara, Western Kwara, Southern Kwara, rain has already fallen. I'm using Kwara as a case study. And some governors also are like that. Whereas some governors, like the one in Anambra, has bought 800 tractors for the farmers. What are they doing in Kwara and some other parts of Nigeria, some governors with their own money? Sometimes the federal government requires their land for wheat. Some states in the north have done that. Some clear more than 40,000 hectares of farmland, preparing that for the farmer. You require that when you clear land, even sometimes they go when they are doing this anchor borrower. What is required from federal government is that every state government owns the land, clear land, then you go back to federal government through the CBN, they will provide the required funds for tractorization, for the seedling and other things. This is like the major problem in Nigeria, the Nigerian governors. Don't even talk of local government, talk of ward. Every ward in Nigeria needs attention. Go beyond local government. Thank you very much, sir.
All right. Thank you, Afolabi from Kwara. Well, you heard the man and the issues he raised.
Well, they have all raised very fundamental issues, very good points. Well, we don't have to depend solely on the federal government for everything. Things have to be done. Private sector investment also has to come in order for us to be able to progress. However, on the issue of our currency, the foreign exchange and all whatnot, people have been asking why it's our currency being related to what we expend, even on Gari. Unfortunately, some Nigerians tend to forget that we are part of the international community. We are part of the international trade. That Nigeria in itself depends on other countries to get goods and services, machineries, chemicals, even for the fertilizer blending factories. You need to have some of these machineries, you need to have some of these inputs. So as such, our currency, we have to be very worried as to how it goes in and comes out and how it is turned. And any producer or any manufacturer that is complaining that dollar has risen up, his goods and services are also being affected, you don't have to blame him. Because in one way or the other, there are some of those dollarization or foreign currency aspects of it that are involved in his production processes. I would also want to address the issue of paddy, although I didn't hear the gentleman clearly, but I would just want to inform that we have the capacity to produce enough paddy in this country to satisfy our needs and to be self-sufficient in rice. We almost got there, but unfortunately, we couldn't because of the issues that have always been said: insecurity, funding, name it, a lot of issues. But I think, and I believe, if this government is going to invest in a way that will have an all-round farming season throughout the year, or some 2 cycles of paddy production in this country with proper irrigation. I was so so happy when I heard what the Niger State government has come up with the irrigation processes and the projects that he's trying to set up, because he has some riverine tributaries where he would, get this Shiroro Dam. He has spoken about it. And some of our own, states do have dams.
All right.
If these are going to be properly put in place, I think we would have well and above enough paddy to be able to satisfy our meals. In addition to the fact that whatever we do, we need to continue to do research on our seeds that are adaptable to specific ecological areas. Like the riverine areas, probably the seeds in the north might not be adequate for them out there. So our research institute should be able to do research and come up with seeds that are adaptable to some of these ecological zones, so that we have, a number of these things. Then the inputs, well, we've always said government, but inputs are something that are very, very strategic. If you do not have the inputs, just like we've talked about fertilizer, if you don't have it as and when due, or if they are terribly expensive. When we started, fertilizer was going for about 2,005, it came up to 5,000, then incidentally it skyrocketed to about 20 something, now about 30,000. Gentlemen, it's difficult.
All right.
So unless we address such things. Thank you very much.
Olabode is calling in from Lagos. Hello, are you still there, Olabode?
Yes, I'm still here. Good evening, Mr. Silis Toba.
Right, go ahead.
Good job that you are doing. Let me start from the fundamental. Whatever is raising war against any nation is planning famine for that nation. So insecurity that prevents people to go to farmland in the last 15 years is coming to manifest. Now, fortunately, the whole world also is coping with pocket of wars, and everybody is trying to manage what they have. If you look at Gaza, Gaza is one of the hub for certain fruits. Those fruits will not come next year. Ukraine, Russia has their own. Now, what is the responsibility of the government? Is to first of all address the fundamental. How do we solve the war against Nigerian farmers? Number 2, the food that is available in the market, is it sufficient for the number of people that are demanding for it? 3, when people said the price of dollar affects everything, it is directly and indirectly. Even though you don't need dollar to produce tomato, the car or the vehicle that will bring tomato to the market is having input of dollar, petrol, spare parts, tire, and stuff like that. Then when we are canvassing, settle the youth in the farm. The question is that whose children are there? If you look all around, everybody has become Marwa rider. And the woman that come from Jos addressed the issue. Everybody is vulnerable. The level of vulnerability that we are facing is to the extent that maybe you have 1 naira to buy food today. Tomorrow, if the exchange rate goes up or there's shortage of food, everybody will drop to the vulnerable zone. So, essentially, what do we need to do? One, government must reflect where are the funding, revenue of Nigeria, where is it going to? Is it going to be judicially used? Is there not a distrust between the government and the follower? Is there sincerity? People that are advising us to remove subsidy, they are subsidizing their product. Why? It is an economic war. You keep the consumer unproductive so that they can buy from you. For the other people that are calling, I just raise those issues for us to ponder upon. But the fundamental is that whatever is waging war against a nation is planning famine for that nation. And the earlier we address that, the better. Thank you. God bless you, sir.
Right. Thank you very much, Olabode. Well, Prof, if you're still with us, this is where we begin to wind down. We only have a very short time left, and so I will spend the rest of the minutes to talk about what needs to be done and how quickly it needs to be done. By the way, I still want to put this, some Nigerians are concerned about the conditions under which these grains have been kept in those silos. Some worry about the safety of those grains, whether they are actually really consumable at this point in time. Now, from what you know about this, take us through how these grains are stored and what conditions they usually should be stored in, or they are stored in, if you're familiar with that.
I think the issue of safety of the food is important. Government should not just release the grains from the reserve. They must take into consideration how the grains are stored. If they have been stored with certain chemical, or they have been stored with in a certain process, I think the food agency that are concerned with the safety of food to Nigerians should be involved and carry out some tests before this thing goes out to the Nigerian populace, so that we don't end up solving another problems of disease or health problem. That's an issue. Since we have started the discussion, nobody has mentioned the issue of electricity, power generation. It's also an important aspect of food security in any nation. We are talking about in the agricultural and food system, there are 4 phases. We have production phase, processing phase, marketing, and utilization, when the food will be on the end user's table or in custody. Now we are talking about the production phase. When we produce the food, the next 3 or 4 months, when they are coming out, I have the belief that with the seal that Nigerians are talking and want to go into production, we'll end up in gloves, produce gloves. What preparation do we have for adding value to our produce? That will create a job. If there is electricity, there will be agro cottage industry that will come up in all news and colors of Nigeria that will create jobs for Nigerians. So are we also looking into this area? This is time we should plan for that. And government should intensify efforts in providing sustainable power electricity in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Prof. We'd like to thank you for being part of this discussion tonight. We do hope at some time you'll avail us of your expertise as well. But let's go to the Commissioner for Agriculture, Kebbi State, to hear him in his closing comments and his recommendations on what needs to be done. Is the Commissioner still with us? All right, I think we must have lost the signals, but let's come back to the studio here and Dr. Mohammed Goji.
I think what needs to be done is the will to do it right. The President has released the grain, governors have received their part for their state, and it's left for governors, the team they constitute, to do it holistically so that it reaches the end user. And also for governors, the presidency, and all stakeholders to intensify efforts in sustaining other sectors so that while we are giving relief for a short-term measure, the medium-term and the long-term measures will also be intensified so that at the long run, at the end of the day, we'll have a bumper harvest and we'll feed ourselves and also export.
Okay. Okay, well, now we have re-established the links with the Kebbi State Commissioner for Agriculture, so we'll just go to him to avail us of his closing comments, what needs to be done and how quickly it needs to be done.
It's production, production, production. This is not the time for lamentation. We have been lamenting in Nigeria for quite a very long time. The area that is covered by insecurity, as people have been saying, is an insignificant area as far as food production is concerned. We have an arable area of over 80 million hectares. The area covered by insecurity, Mr. Cyril, is less than 10 million hectares. Let us not be complaining and complaining. Let us swing into action. Let us not be distracted by insecurity. Let us not be distracted by dollar rate and what have you. Let us go into production and produce foods for the teeming people of Nigeria. This is what I have to say. We have done it in the past and we can still do it. All we need is the will to do it. We have to defend. We have to capture fear. We have to live above this. Let us go out there and produce food. We can still do it, Mr. Cyril.
And just before we leave you, we just talked about the safety of what people will be consuming, which is coming out of the silos. You like to enlighten us about the kinds of conditions in which storage has taken place, because of course you do have some experience in distributing grains too. Should anyone be concerned about the safety of those grains?
So what he said, that such produce before being released from the silos should be subjected to quality test. We have caused in my state dwelling the first phase of the distribution. My governor has to reject a trailer load of grains because the way he inspected the grains, he found it unworthy for human consumption. And I believe it's not much of a concern. Why? Because when you look at the volume of the food we have received in Kebbi State, and only a trailer load is affected, then we say it's insignificant. It's normal in food storage to have a certain percentage being spoiled. So I agree with the professor. Let us test before being released to the public for consumption.
All right. Thank you very much, Shehu Muazu, Commissioner for Agriculture, Kebbi State, who joined us via Zoom from Birnin Kebbi. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. Let me come back to you quickly, and that's about the matter of safety. You just heard the Commissioner now say that they've actually tested those grains to ascertain. Now, when you do carry out your exercise? What assurances are...
In your state, the first directive by His Excellency Governor Malabuni is to ensure that the food items received are wholesome for human consumption. Whether they do test it at the silos or not, once they arrive at our warehouses, we subject it to test. We bring experts to see it before we receive items. And in most cases, most of the items that we receive, whether we buy it from our vendors or from the federal government, so far there's no any cause for alarm on the items we receive, and we will continue reviewing the item we receive before we distribute to the end users.
Okay. Well, for Peter Dama, if you recall, some time ago there were reports of some very vulnerable people who were consuming seeds which they were meant to plant. Some farmers, when it got so bad, and now we're hoping that this time around we don't end up with grains that may not be wholesome for consumption at this time, or that you find people who are so hard hit that anything, just anything to survive would go.
Well, it's unfortunate. We have had incidences where Nigerians consume seeds that are supposed to be grains, those ones that have been highly chemicalized, and it affected them. We've had stories. We have had some of the experiences back in some years. I just hope that this does not repeat itself. I must also take this opportunity to say that in most of the nations, food and agriculture is being subsidized. And as such, I don't think that Nigeria should be an isolation. I believe that agriculture should be subsidized in this nation for people to be able to produce and for people to be able to take their produce to sell and for people to feed. The excess, we now export them. I also want to say, I don't want to comment about the silos because, as I have said earlier or before, I was on a committee that had gone round our silos in this nation. It wasn't the best of stories. I don't know whether it has changed. And I just pray and hope that the metric tons you people are talking about are really there, to be able to give out to people. Not that you go to the markets, mobilize, and make the prices go higher. Let's hope that these things are actually there, and they're there, and they'll be taken and given to the vulnerable. And as I've said, the society, almost everybody, the youths, the elderly, the middle class, are also becoming very vulnerable. It is critical, and it has to be a holistic approach to deal with this matter. So on this note, I will appeal that the government should subsidize, capitalize the Bank of Agric if the CBN is not allowed to continue with this ANCO borrow, so that we have our farmers get back to farm and produce. Thank you.
All right, and it is on that note we'll conclude this conversation. I'd like to thank all our guests one more time. Dr. Mohammed Goje, Executive Secretary, State Emergency Management Agency. That's Yobe State Emergency Management Agency. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
We were also joined by Professor Akinle Farindi, Professor of Agricultural Extension and Rural Development, Faculty of Agriculture of Bafemi Awolowo University, Ile-Ife, who joined us via Zoom from Ile-Ife. We were also in the company of Shehu Muazu, the Commissioner for Agriculture, Kebbi State. He joined us via Zoom from Birnin Kebbi. We thank you very much for your contributions. Thank you so much. And then, of course, the National Chairman, Rice Millers Association of Nigeria, and Chairman, Board of Trustees, Competitive African Rice Forum, Peter Dama. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure being with you.
Pleasure. Good evening, everybody.
And thanks to all those who called in with their questions and comments. Well, thank you for being part of this program. Next week, we'll be back with NTA Tuesday Live. I'm Cyril Stover. Bye for now.